Good morning and welcome to Wednesday Live Edit. I had a request from someone to show the rest of the edit on this image that I did in my video from this past weekend. Um, I showed my workflow through Lightroom using the AI denoise and then stacking using Starry Landscape Stacker. And then I showed the final image, but I did not show the final image as it was processed through um, Photoshop. And they asked to see that process as well. And I've got something else planned for this week's video, so I figured, well, let me jump on here and do it as a live. So this is the image that I did, and this is out of Starry Landscape Stacker using the minimum value. And I've kind of started tending towards some of these minimum values because they're not overpowering with the stars. It's a little bit more muted, and you can really see the Milky Way come out that way. So it was one of the main reasons that I chose the minimum. So I'm going to pick up this edit, and if you want to see that process, you can check out a video I posted on Sunday, and I'll link that in here when I'm done. But we're going to go to edit, and I'm going to edit this image in Photoshop. And I'm going to edit with Lightroom adjustments, which I don't really think it's got any Lightroom adjustments, but we're going to do it anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fit on the screen there. And my first process is to run ClarSky. And these are some actions that can be downloaded. They're linked on my channel, and I'll put a link here. They're Milky Way finisher actions. You can reduce the number of stars. It's got a noise reduction function, but I'm tending towards using some of the AI noise reduction at this point, and stacking, of course. And ClarSky is a really neat action that once you run it, it creates 5 different layers to choose from with differing degrees of clarity added. And then it's a matter of going down the line, finding which one that I feel works best. And I think in this case I'm going to use 4, and I'm going to command click the rest of these, and I'm going to delete those layers so that I don't balloon this tip up too far. My next action is going to be to run a filter. I'm going to run a Nik Collection Color Efex Pro. And then I have a couple of the recipes, the presets, saved out as favorites, and I'll usually run down these to see which one really strikes me as the best. And I kind of like this clarity bump. It adds a good bit to this image, but I'm going to turn it down just a bit, give it some dynamic contrast. Color corrections, can turn it to blue. I'm going to warm it up just a little bit, but I actually killing the brilliance and warmth. And I'm going to apply. that layer. So we've gone from here to begin with, clear sky, and now we're going to use clarity bump. And one of my main tools is ProPanel by John Weatherby. I highly recommend it. It does a lot of heavy lifting by just simply pressing some buttons instead of having to go through key combos or figure it out in Photoshop. So I'm going to stamp up. It creates a brand new layer that is a combination of all the layers below. And the next filter that I'm going to run is Skylum Luminar 4. I've used Luminar Neo and I do like it, but I really like Luminar 4. And I've downloaded some Luminar looks, and this one's called Seascape, which I obviously use a lot. And then I'll go down the line here trying to find something that looks appealing. And I tend towards these two, lurking in shadows. If I've got a shot that's particularly dark, I can bump it up here. Or I really like using Misty Mood, primarily because it puts a lot of glow in the Milky Way here. So I'm going to apply that. And I like to name my layers so that I can go back to exactly what was done. You can see this Luminar Misty Mood warms it up even more and puts that glow in the Milky Way, in the core of the Milky Way. And then the final filter that I'm going to run, I'm going to stamp up again, is Topaz Labs Denoise. Now I know this is starting to get redundant. It's noise reduction on top of noise reduction on top of noise reduction, but these nightscape images tend to be very noisy. This particular image had noise reduction run in the beginning as part of the Lightroom edit, and then it was stacked. However, this is only 3 image stack, so it doesn't have a tremendous amount of noise reduction. And as you can see over here on the left, which is the original, it's got a little bit of noise here in the sky and noise down here in the ocean, and then some noise here in the foreground. And as you can see on the right side, which is the edited version, which is in which the denoise has been applied, it's cleaning a good bit of that up. And you can go in here and tweak it if you don't like it, but I kind of like what the standard that's been applied. And we're going to let it process that image. It'll take a few seconds. And of course, we're going to name that layer. And as we see, we've gone from here in the beginning all the way to here just by simply applying a few filters. So I've got one more tool that I'm going to use, and this is called Astro Panel X. I'm going to apply Milky Way and I'm going to boost it. I'm going to go back to Pro Panel and enable layers. Drop this extra layer out. And I'm going to disable the layer mask and it'll show you what it does. I'm going to disable the layer mask and it'll show you it adds a lot of depth to the dark nebulosity. I'm sorry. It adds a lot of depth to the darkness, to those dark dust clouds and nebula in the Milky Way and in the foreground. But I don't want it applied to the entire image because it's going to really make it a little bit darker and more dramatic than what I'd like. I like it to be a little bit softer. And so I'm going to grab my brush tool here. I'm going to paint with white on top of black. White reveals, black conceals. And I'm going to use an opacity of 15% with a flow rate of 35 and smoothing of 10. And I'm just going to come in here and adjust the Milky Way. I'll work that just a little bit. And I want to do a little bit, I want to bring out a little bit of that depth in the foreground, but not with the full power of the layer. So you can see where we've come in the beginning to where we are now. So my next step is to apply a bit of dodge and burn. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can apply dodge and burn in Pro Panel. It has the ability for you to do that. You can create a dodge and burn layer and then apply luminosity masking. But my personal preference is to use RiaPro and run a dodge and burn layer, and it will automatically pull up to create a luminosity mask. And we're going to adjust this luminosity mask so that it's just, and this luminosity mask is reversed. White conceals, white reveals and black conceals. So what I'm doing is targeting the lighter parts of this, the darker parts of this image. And I'm going to keep that same brush, but I'm going to reverse it. I'm painting black on it, and I'm going to come in and we're going to darken that Milky Way core down just a little bit more. You see what we're doing there? We're using that luminosity mask so that it's not affecting the stars, it's just affecting the sky. And I'm darkening it down just a little bit. And I'm going to paint a little bit on here so that it gives me a little bit more depth in my foreground. All right. I like what that's done. And I'm going to stamp up because there's a couple of small things that I want to go ahead and address at this point. And one of them is this light over here. This is not the sunrise, although this is the first rays of sun coming over the horizon here. This is a boat out on the horizon, and I want to try and see if we can knock that out. And that a little too far. So we're going to back it up. There we go. Okay, that looks even. I just wanted to kind of address that just a little bit. It's not that bad. But I don't want people to think, well, that's the sun popping up, and it's not. You got to realize this is about an hour and 15 minutes before sunrise, where you just start to see that light appear on the horizon. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to run a ProPanel filter. I want to do an Orton Sharp. See what that looks like. And we see that's darkening things just a little bit more, making them a little bit darker, but also a little bit softer, which is, it helps add to the mood of the image and gives it a more ethereal view and feel to it. So that is about all that I'm going to do from this point. My last step is always to apply my watermark, and my watermark is simply a brush that I can paint with white. And I can apply that watermark anywhere. In the image, I tend to do one of these corners. And I'm going to export this out. I have an export set up, 77% quality. I'm going to export it out as an image size of 2048 and save. And that's primarily because I'm using these images in social media. And the minute you upload it to the minute you upload it to Facebook or Instagram, they're gonna cut the quality down. So, and then that's about the most that you're gonna get out of it. And so I've already got one of these saved. Just call this one Selfie B. We're gonna save it. And I always, before I save the image out, so that it will round trip back into Lightroom, I take off my watermark layer and then save it out, and I'll show you why. So we swap back to Lightroom. And you can see this was the original image that I ran the edits on. But that watermark is not in it. And so from here, I can export it if I need to export a full-size image for printing, or anything like that. I can export it out, and I don't have that watermark in it. Otherwise, I'd have to open Photoshop back up and save it out from Photoshop, which I'd rather not have to do. It's just easier to run it out of Lightroom, and it's still saving. There we go. It's finally done saving. Show you these two. So these are my two edits. This is the original raw file with Lightroom edits before it gets stacked out to the final image. And this is the stacked image. It's pretty clean, but it's still got just a little bit of noise in it. And then this final image. And that's my workflow. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got something out of it. If you'd like to see me do an image live, drop me a comment, send me a message. I'll be happy to do it. I love sharing my workflow. One of the things I explained in my previous video, this is not the only way that you can edit these images. There are dozens of ways that you can get to where I've gotten. My way may not be the right way, but it's the way that I've learned to do it. And so I like sharing it. I hope that you can get something out of it the same way I got something from Ian Norman and all of the other guys that I watched in the beginning when I started learning editing. I would pick different things that they did and add those to my process. And I've finally settled on this. So I hope to hear from you. And as always, it's time to get out there and capture some magic.